Okay, so this is the story about the time I beat a jaywalking ticket. I got the ticket in North Hollywood, but I had to go to court in Van Nuys. So I was riding my bicycle home, and it's Los Angeles. So even when the roads are empty, which it was because I'd stayed at work pretty late, it was probably like 8:30, almost 9 o'clock, and there's just no traffic. There's nobody on the road in that part of town right there. So I'm riding home from the studio towards my apartment, and there's a sort of a 5 points area there. I think this was Lankershim Boulevard. And there's actually really steep drop offs for these sidewalks. And I rode a mountain bike always because every time I tried to ride a 10 speed, I'd bust a tire in minutes. So I'm doing the little, jump off the high thing, just to make the ride a little interesting or what have you. So I'm riding my bike, I jump off, I go across the intersection, I'm on the sidewalk, I'm well through the intersection, and there is nobody, not a soul on the street, not a car or anything. And blue and red lights come on. Cop pulls me over. I'm on the sidewalk. He comes up, and I'm like, yeah. And he goes, you jaywalked back there. And I'm like, no, I didn't jaywalk. And he's like, you went across the hand on the crosswalk. And like, I might have. I wasn't paying any attention. There was no traffic. The light was green. I was on the sidewalk. I just went. He was probably right. I probably did that. But I always doubted it because, like, I'm here, and the little thing saying, don't walk is right here. And the cop was over here, like in front of me at this gas station. Once he did the blue lights and what have you, it kicked into my head that there was a car in that gas station parking lot. So I don't really know how he could have seen the hand thing because it's like I said, it's a 5 points intersection and he's pretty far over there. So he may have just been making shit up. I don't know. Anyway. So he asked for my driver's license. I give him my driver's license, and he writes me a jaywalking ticket. And the ticket says it's a $25 ticket. And I look at him. I said, "Man, I think this is nonsense. I hope you show up to court because I'm gonna fight this." He goes, and he there's a taken aback by me saying that. He's like, "Well, I'll be there," and I'm like, "Good." So I go home, and I take the ticket, and it has a court date on it. So I show up over at Van Nuys for the court date. And as it turns out, it's not really a court date. It's just a date and time they told me on this thing that I had to pay it by. Like, I could have gone earlier, but the way it was written and the way it looked and the form of the ticket and everything made it seem like it was my court date. So I get over there to Van Nuys. It's a freaking ghost town. And all they have is this one huge rounded glass wall with all these different stations where like a clerk would come up and you would pass your ticket underneath, kind of like the bulletproof windows at a bank, in a bad part of town, And so I passed my ticket underneath, and she looks at me and she goes, that'll be, and I think she said it was $170 or some nonsense. And I'm like, the ticket says it's $25. And she goes, well, the rest of it's tax. And I'm like, tax on a ticket? Yes, I never heard of such a thing, And but evidently in California, that's the thing. You have to pay like 170% tax on a ticket. I looked it up and found out later. But then I'm like, 170% of $25 is not $170. So I think they had like a bare minimum you had to pay, or they were just trying to fleece me extra. I don't know. So anyway, she says that, and I said, well, it doesn't matter anyway. I'm pleading not guilty. And she goes, you can't plead not guilty. And I said, this is America. I absolutely can and am pleading not guilty. And she goes, well, you still have to pay the fine. And I'm like, no, I haven't been found guilty. I don't have to pay a fine until I've been found guilty. And she goes, you have to pay the fine or you're going to go to jail. And I'm like, and I look around, and there's literally me on my side of the glass and her on her side of the glass. And there's glass doors behind me, and you can see out in the parking lot, and the only car is mine. And I look at her and go, and who's going to take me to jail? Because you're on that side, and I'm on this side. And she goes, sir, this is the way it's done. And I'm like, hey, you're doing it wrong. This is America. I'm not guilty. I'm not supposed to have to pay this thing until I have a court, until I go to court, and I'm not going to lose. I'm going to win this case. I'm not guilty. I didn't do it, and I'm pleading not guilty. Now I want my court date, please. And she sort of flusters about and mumbles a little bit and what have you, and she goes, fine. And she pushes a piece of paper under and gives it to me, and I look at it, and it says, I have a court date. And I'm like, okay, thank you. And I leave. I go, and I don't like run out or anything. I just walk out to my car, and I drive home. And so, and I've been telling my boss about this. We got along pretty good. I've been telling my boss about this. And I worked at Universal at the time, and they actually told me that, if I had to go to court, that that's excused. They'll pay me. I was salaried, so they were like, okay, no biggie. And I was like, wow, that's totally cool. So I'm totally fighting this thing. I'm not even losing money at work, And so I show up for that court date, but it happens to be at night, so I don't really have to miss any work anyway. So I show up for that court date, and I notice that there's a placard that says commissioner. And it's not a judge, it's a commissioner. And I was like, and all these people before me were going up, they were like, judge, 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 judge. And so I walk up and I go, good evening, commissioner. And he like raises an eyebrow and looks at me, because he didn't like that. And he says, how do you plead? And I said, I'm here for my court date. He's like, no, this is an arraignment. And I'm like, I already showed up for that. I already told the lady I pled not guilty. Why am I here? And he's like, we have to do an arraignment. And I'm like, okay, I'm not guilty. He says, all right, that'll be $170. And I'm like, for what? And he goes, well, you have to pay for bail. I'm like, this is my second time showing up. Clearly, bail's not necessary. And he goes, you pay for bail or you go to jail. And I said, well, all right, I'll pay the $25 for the fine, for the ticket. I said, but I shouldn't have to pay the tax. And he's like, why not? And I said, because it's not a fine yet. I haven't been found guilty of anything. There's a tax on fines. There's not a tax on bail. And he like gets all sort of weird looking and nervous, and he looks down and he flips through some papers and he goes, that doesn't matter. You pay $170 an hour, you go to jail. So I paid the $170 because I didn't want to go to jail over a damn $25 jaywalking ticket that I wasn't even guilty of. So I paid $170, and they give me a court date. I get sent away 2 more times. I show up, and it's in the evening. I show up, and they go, your case isn't going to be heard. And I'm like, why? And they go, your case isn't going to be heard. And I'm like, why not? And they go, your case isn't going to be heard. Show back, and they give me another date. So that happens twice. I show up, they kick me out. I show up, they kick me out. So then on the second time they kick me out, when they give me a court date, it's in the morning at 8 a.m. instead of being at this evening thing. And so I tell the boss, and I've been telling this all along, and of course everybody's like, this is a $25 ticket and you've already been there 4 times? I'm like, it's a $25 ticket and I've already been there 4 times. So finally I go and I show up at 8 o'clock in the morning. And the way it is, it's a real courtroom, still only a commissioner. And they've got these big glass, probably bulletproof windows, but there's an aisle in the middle you can walk through, and you walk through that, and you got the prosecutor on one side, defense on the other side, and then you have the judge up there. And I think once you're in that part, I don't think there's any glass between you and the judge or, like that. But there is like all this glass, and it might not have been bulletproof. It may have just been more to sort of block the noise. But all the people who are there for a court case and their attorneys and everything are sort of in a hallway, but there's not like real doors blocking you from seeing what's going on in there so you can hear yourself be called and all that. And I don't remember exactly what it looked like, but it was mostly glass and benches and everybody sitting there, and we're all talking about each other's cases and stuff. And as it turns out, the cop that wrote me a ticket, all of his cases are at the end of the day. So I don't think he even starts his first case till maybe 3 o'clock. And as it turns out, I'm dead last. Everyone else goes. I'm the last guy out in the waiting area. That cop's the last cop that's there. There's no attorneys left. So it's the cop, it's me, and the judge. That's it. We're the only people there. There may have been like a clerk person or something, but I don't remember. So anyway, they finally call my case up. And the judge says, stand up, raise your right hand. And I stand up and raise my right hand. He swears me in, but he doesn't swear the cop in. And I, just noted in my head, I'm like, well, that seems like BS. So then anyway, he turns to the officer and he says something like, well, go ahead and state, what your business is. And the cop, says date, time, location. And he says, Mr. Mullen crossed against the raised hand. And so I wrote him a ticket for jaywalking, Your Honor. And the cop takes like a total of 2 minutes, if that. And the judge is like, is that all? He's like, yes, sir. And so the cop sits down. But he sits right there, like you would see in court. Like you stand up at the little table, you sit right behind it. And he goes, Mr. Mullen, do you have anything? And I go, well, I have questions for him. And should we swear him in? And the judge goes, that's not necessary. Or the commissioner goes, that's not necessary. So the cop stands up, and I look over at him, and I go, was I riding a bicycle? And the cop goes, you might have been. You might have been riding a bicycle. And I go, that's all I have for him, Your Honor. And the judge says, well, do you have anything else to add? And I say, I was riding a bicycle. Would Your Honor please, and I had it right in front of me, and I said, would you please turn to page 2 of the California Penal Code? So, I opened mine up. I got a little Post-it note or what have you there. And right near the top of the page, like the very first page of the California Penal Code is like, this is the California Penal Code, date, time, all that kind of stuff. You get to the second page, and I don't remember if it was the first or the second paragraph, but it's literally on the very top of the first page of the laws for California, and it says the definition of a pedestrian. And it's about a paragraph long, and it says like people who are walking, skating, skateboarding, in wheelchairs, and there's a paragraph of all these people who are pedestrians, and then the last line of that first paragraph on the first page is, but not persons riding a bicycle. And the judge reads that, and I was about to say, Your Honor, I'm not a pedestrian in this situation. I can't be found guilty of a pedestrian-only crime, but I don't even have to say any of that, because the judge looks up and goes, he got you there. Case dismissed. Boom. 3 months later, I get a refund check and they did refund all of the money I had to pay for the fine and the bail, which I still say is total bullshit because it was never a fine because I was never found guilty. And but yeah, that was by the time I beat a jaywalking ticket in Los Angeles.